Point number two is when we talk about Africa, it's not just one country. There are 54 countries. So heterogeneity is extremely important to be aware of when we talk about Africa as a continent. So at the bilateral level, the best benchmark is what Prime Minister Modi unveiled when he talked about the 10 principles that should govern India's engagement with Africa. And he spelt out all the 10 principles during his last visit to Africa. So that at the bilateral level, I think is absolutely important. India's own foreign policy has gone through a change in which we find now growing emphasis on triangularity of development cooperation. So in the Indo-Pacific context, India-Japan partnership has assumed great importance. Those of us who heard the new External Affairs Minister yesterday are well aware of this resurgent India that the government is talking about in terms of this triangularity of partnership. So more and more such engagements with countries like France, with Germany, with UK, and of course with the US, we have long-standing partnership. So that's the second point I wanted to mention. Third is the cooperation with Africa going beyond G2G. So we find new actors coming and playing more important role. RIS has documented through what is called as FIDC, Forum for Indian Development Cooperation, where we have captured the role of the CSOs in bringing agriculture-related and other sector-related knowledge to Africa. Some of the private sectors are also playing an important role. ITC's CETA project funded by DFID is extremely important here. But overall, if you see the collective commitment for Agenda 2030 is extremely important. There are, of course, some fault lines and some lines what we need to be careful about. And when I was in Mozambique some time back, I did hear about the commitment we made about growing pulses and then we withdraw. So that creates sort of bitter taste. So I think it is important for us to see how those engagements are still honored. The other is more related to reshaping the narrative, and this was related to a fieldwork visit that I did in Ethiopia. There is an institute in UK called Auckland Institute, and this Auckland Institute came out with a study putting which Western media placed in bold headlines on several front pages in terms of India's efforts for land grab, and that I think is something which when I did the field work in Ethiopia, I gathered the fact that no one can buy land in Ethiopia, so question of land grab. And then I wrote out a detailed paper on this. So I think it is important for us to shape the narrative. My fifth point is about entrepreneurship development. When India, immediately after independence, World Bank funded in India what is called as the Seed Capacity Building Program. So 1954 to 1956, we had a very rich World Bank program which gave birth to n number of private seed companies, and some of them are our biggest actors now. And that phase was very important for entrepreneurship development in the seed sector. Later on, of course, we went into inward-looking policy regime, but after 1988, when we opened up the sector, things have unleashed, and now government is on more an enabling role than the actor itself. And this is what we, I think, require in case of Africa. My colleague Dr. Amit and a couple of other partnerships that we have produced papers on a survey of Kenya, Ethiopia. Mozambique was also on our radar to see the seed sector, and the fact is there's a huge gap when it comes to entrepreneurship, and because of that gap we need to see how India's experience can be shared when it comes to entrepreneurship development. The sixth point that I have in mind is about research and innovation ecosystem. I think we would be discussing that with ICRISAT and a very rich agenda that we would have today throughout the different sessions. Regulatory regimes and opening of markets particularly vis-a-vis sanitary and phytosanitary measures and technical barriers to trade, I think is important. The last point that I want to mention here, and I was just talking to Honorable Secretary, is in terms of India's external orientation, and this I had also mentioned when Dr. Pal hosted Professor Jha Memorial Lecture, where I had mentioned that the time has come now for India to expand the contours of our engagement through agriculture counselors, and it is important that these counselors are our agriculture scientists who have worked in new programs that PM has introduced, particularly in terms of soil health, in terms of quality of products, and also in terms of processing. So several new initiatives India has unleashed, and I'm so grateful to Secretary Agriculture here, Mr. Agrawal. Some of us were in the meeting yesterday, what Commerce Minister hosted to chart out India's new territories for export and trade expansion. So I think it's a very packed day for us. I'm grateful to IRI for partnering with RIS and exploring this opportunity with World Food Programme. As I said, we have produced already a report which is on your table. I'm also grateful to Honorable Acting High Commissioner of South Africa and a great friend of RIS BAN for agreeing to join us and chair the morning session. Without further ado, I would like to now invite my colleague, Dr. Nafis, for his welcome remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. His Excellency, the Acting High Commissioner for South Africa, Mr. Ben Joubert, the Honourable Secretary of Agriculture, Mr. Sanjay Agrawal, and of course Professor Chaturvedi, Director General of RIS. First of all, let me thank Dr. Chaturvedi and RIS for organising this roundtable meeting. I think it's very timely. Indeed, yesterday or the day before yesterday at the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, this issue of South-South collaboration was discussed, and the presentation was given by the Director General of ICRISAT precisely on this subject. If I could say something very quickly about IRI, the International Rice Research Institute, and the CGIAR system as a whole. Well, we have been operating for nearly 60 years. In fact, next year will be our 60th anniversary, which we hope to celebrate with you all next year. But we've been involved very much in agricultural development, and to an extent, we've been, I think we could say, successful in Asia and Southeast Asia. To an extent, it's moved from food deficit to a food secure area. Now, that's not the case with sub-Saharan Africa. One of the things that's mentioned in the Sustainable Development Goal, particularly Sustainable Goal number 2 on zero hunger, is the target to increase investment, including through enhanced international cooperation in agricultural research, extension services, technology development, and in order to enhance agricultural productive capacity in developing countries, in particular in least developing countries. So what we believe as one of the CGI institutes is, with a footprint both in Asia and in Africa, is that we are in a position to help and assist the government of India in achieving its own ambition in developing these the South-South collaboration and trilateral partnerships. So that's hopefully what we will be talking about during the course of this session. Now, it is designed as a roundtable meeting, so we would welcome everybody to make their contributions. And what I would request is that people address or think about three key issues. One is the issue that's already been mentioned by Professor Chakravarty about India's outward-facing policy now that's come into existence, and in particular its relationship with African countries. However, notwithstanding the intention, it might be useful to think about what is the gap between the reality and the ambition in the India-Africa partnership in agricultural modernization. So that's the first point. The other point, and given that we are assigned a research for development organization and very much involved in transfer of technology and know-how, is how can we better implement the technology transfer from what's been achieved by India. In fact, one of the things I read yesterday was that the rice production in India is going to exceed 115 million tons this year. So it's a substantial increase. So what can we learn from the experience of India in terms of the technology, and how can we transfer it to countries in sub-Saharan Africa? And lastly, how can IRI and the CGI system help India in achieving its objectives in this area of agricultural modernization in Africa? So during the course of this morning, what I would like is in the discussion that we address these points. And hopefully, as a result of that, we have a way forward in which IRI and the CGR system, India with its ambition for developing partnership with African countries, can work together to help push forward that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nafis. I would now request our partner, IRI's representative, Dr. Ismail, who is based in Eastern and Southern Africa, on behalf of IRI. So, Dr. Ismail.
Good morning. Indeed, great pleasure to be here. And I really thank Professor Chaturvedi for organizing this session. I recognize the presence of the dignitaries here, Honorable Secretary, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, and His Excellency, Acting High Commissioner, South African High Commission in New Delhi, our colleagues from the international organizations, also from donor component. I see people from IFAD and others, World Food Organization, diplomats from Africa and also from other countries here in Delhi, officials from the government of India. It's really quite heartening to see this high representation in this meeting, which really tell us about how important the role of India will be and is in Africa, and we look forward really to strengthen this role. As Nafis mentioned, our main objective from this meeting is really to understand better what are really the investments and help that India is providing to Africa, and also how can we really get into that loop and help. We are now present in Africa. I worked in India in IRI for about 18 years, and now moved to Africa. So most of my work has been in South Asia, and especially here in India. So now I moved to Africa, and we really want to translate the knowledge and progress that's happening in Africa, in Asia, to Africa, because Africa is really quite in their need for help right now. Food and nutrition security are really major problems, despite lots of resources that are available. So if you look at this figure, you probably understand quite well why we went to Africa. Rice becoming more and more important. As you can see, the gap between supply and demand is increasing. And that is mainly because population in Africa is growing at a rate of about 4%, which is quite high compared to other countries. And also there is a shift in consumer preferences in Africa. In the past, people used to eat cassava and sorghum and millet and maize as the main crop. Now they are looking to fine grains because the economy improved. Most people moved to urban areas. And this is creating also a problem because there is an exodus of youth from agricultural areas, rural areas to cities. And I just look at some data in Nigeria, for example, there is more than 2 million youth moving into cities every year. This is huge, besides the migration to outside of the continent, which is also creating some problems right now. So we want to see how we revert this situation. There is also a steady increase in per capita consumption in all African countries right now, which is really amazing, as you can see from this graph. So there is really a need for us to build rice and rice-based system in Africa and also work with other organizations to improve the food production and also particularly nutrition. So the situation of rice now, the demand is increasing at a rate of about 6% across the sub-Saharan Africa. In some countries, the rate is quite high, like in Kenya and Ethiopia, the rate now is about 12 to 13% increase per year, which is really huge, and both countries do not have enough resources to do that. The local rice production